Welcome to WOW, the Whiteboard of Wisdom. So we've had a bit of a development at Move and we've managed to build some new offices, and we have in every single room a different whiteboard. But this one is going to become the Whiteboard of Wisdom, where every week we are going to put out there a different lecture, a different piece of information that is ultimately designed to help you fix your injuries and get back to what you love doing. Today, I'm going to walk you through the hierarchy of rehab, so that the aim is when you finish this lecture, when you've watched it to the end, that you know exactly what the key things you need to focus on, whatever your injury is, to make the biggest bang for buck and the biggest meaningful change, not just to get pain-free, but to have long-term results. So at the base of our pyramid, we have two key things, and these are the underpinning foundations of any successful rehab. And they are strength training and aerobic capacity. The key thing that you need to understand about these two, it's not about hitting certain levels of strength, it's not about hitting certain levels of aerobic capacity, or more commonly known as fitness. It is that improving these, whether that's on a local basis at the key joint or on a global basis, will essentially give you more buffer. And it's like living life on a bowling lane with higher barriers on each side. And essentially they're going to be really protective qualities, because one of the key things that they're going to mean, the higher levels of strength and fitness that you have, the less cost of everything else that you do. So what I mean by that is, and the common reason that people get injured is because they have poor aerobic capacity, yet they go for an hour-long run, they play rugby, which is 80 minutes, they play netball, which is 60 minutes, they play football, which is 90 minutes, and when they get into sort of 75–80% of the way through the game, their aerobic capacity is being used up. Essentially, they're getting to the limits of their fitness. But what that means is it starts to erode other physical qualities, such as strength, so that then when they go to sprint, they go to change direction, they don't have the strength available to tolerate that movement. And this is one of the really key things that we look at with every single client we work with, whether that's online or in person here at our clinic in Harrogate. We go through a full assessment, and if you are interested to know a little bit more about how we do work, use the top link in the bio. That'll take you to an application form, and we'll send you all of the information that we need, that you need based off your specific injury, which is why we use the application form. But essentially, the more strength you have and the more aerobic capacity, or the higher levels of fitness, they're just going to protect you. The other really key thing that it will do, and this is what's so unique about our approach here at Move, is that improvements in these two will skyrocket your performance. A higher performing person, a higher performing athlete, and I use that loosely because the big misconception about us here at Move is that we only work with athletes or healthy or active people. But the reason I use the word performance is because it can be viewed through any lens. If you're a higher performing athlete, you will perform at a higher level, so therefore you'll become less likely to get injured. But if you're a mum, a dad, a grandparent, and the meaningful thing to you is running around in the garden, I'm a dad of two now, so I know how exhausting that can be, and you want to run around, be able to pick them up, throw them around, then having higher levels of performance, better levels of strength, better aerobic capacity will mean that you can do that more, you are less likely to get hurt, and you can do it for longer, you can do it more consistently, and you're going to be able to do it for into later life. So we're improving quality of life and longevity by actually improving levels of performance. And it's that switch between performance is just active individuals who view themselves as athletes to I need to perform at my best possible level through my specific lens. The next thing as we go up the hierarchy, and this was a hard thing to separate, but these two are so foundational that improvements in these will improve everything else, is movement quality. And there's three key components to movement quality. There's the actual control and coordination of a movement. So what the movement looks to the naked eye when you do it, and how muscles coordinate with each other, how the brain coordinates the movement. And one of the big things that people get wrong with movement quality is that their intent is poor. You can do the same exercise in two very different ways and elicit very different training adaptations or improvements in how you feel and how you move and how you perform because of the intent behind the movement quality. The other really key thing, which I've noted here, is co-contractions. So when you think about, the easiest way to think about it is when you walk, you stay relatively level. So I step forwards and I'm just keeping moving on the same plane of movement. But most of the work that you would do in the gym is down and up. It has an eccentric and it has a concentric. But a co-contraction is when all of the muscles work synergistically together, so they coordinate and they co-contract together, and they work a little bit more isometrically to absorb the force and then push you forwards, rather than this, which one would look really stupid, but two would be really inefficient. So movement quality is the next tier up on our hierarchy. Next is capacity, hypertrophy, and plyometrics. So I was maybe going to separate these out, but the reason I put them together is that these are really key parts of a high quality rehab continuum. And here at Move, we use a 6-step rehab continuum. And the reason for that is we want to build control and dampen down the pain first. Then we want to build capacity and endurance, which is a type of strength. Then we want to make sure that we have the appropriate levels of hypertrophy, so muscle volume, because that'll tell us a lot about how robust a joint would be or how robust a limb would be. Before then, we move into match strength markers and plyometrics and along that continuum. And that's obviously individual to each person, their injury and what their needs are and what their goals are. But the reason I put them all together is because these are really key KPIs that someone needs to tick off through an effective and safe rehab program. Because what we end up doing here at Move is we help a lot of people who have failed previous approaches. And the reason that they've failed previous approaches is because they've blindly gone through a rehab continuum. I'm going to come into it at the top of the hierarchy, but what most people do, and the big mistake, is that they wait for the pain to dampen down and then they just go back to the activities that they went to before. And the reason that that doesn't work is because they're not ticking off their KPIs, so the key performance indicators, so key goals based on specific physical qualities that allow you, and this is something we talk about all the time, hopefully you can see that on the camera, to earn the right to progress and not skip steps. Because people who skip steps and people who don't earn the right to go back to hopping, jumping, running, playing sport end up back at the beginning of that rehab journey because they don't have the underpinning physical qualities, big enough foundation to tolerate the demands of the things that they're trying to do. Next, and one of the more overrated, in my opinion, is flexibility and mobility work, particularly static flexibility training or mobility training and banded exercises. Because if you move really well in the gym, squats, lunges, different things like that, and you add external load, so you build strength, you're going to get more bang for buck out of your flexibility and mobility training. There is research that shows that, and a lot of the flexibility and the mobility training that people do is very transient. And what I mean by that is it creates a short-term effect. And actually, as we go up this hierarchy, we're long-term effect, medium-term effect, short-term effects. So what we're looking for is bang for buck at the bottom, foundations, things that's going to last the test of time. And as we go up, it's more novel stimuluses that you can create a quick change in how your body feels and moves. But if you only focus on that, then that will be why you end up back at square one. If you enjoy flexibility and mobility training, I'm not saying don't do it, but do it as creating a window of opportunity where you've slightly improved how your body feels, so dampen down some pain signals, you've improved a little bit of range of motion, and layer it in there with strength work and movement quality, which is going to mean that you own that position and the new ranges of motion that you've created, creating a longer term adaptation that you keep, rather than stretching your hamstrings today, going about your day, waking up and it being exactly the same tomorrow. So many people, again, that we work with online and in person tell that same story. I was given these 3 stretches and they kind of make me feel a bit better, but then the pain comes back. It's the same story that we hear time and time again. Next is passive treatment. Now, massage, manipulation, acupuncture needles, dry needling, foam rollers are a big culprit. Again, very similar to flexibility and mobility. It is a useful tool, but it is not a foundational rehab methodology, tool, modality, whatever you want to think of it as. It creates windows of opportunity where pain is dampened down and ranges of motion are different, but there is zero research that actually links massage, manipulation, needles to long-term outcomes from a rehab perspective. These two essentially create the window of opportunity, and I'm even going to write it there. Window of opportunity, the WOO, that's a nice acronym. The window of opportunity to do more of this: building capacity, building movement quality, building strength, building aerobic capacity. This is what this does. And the tip of the tier, and maybe my biggest bugbear at the moment from an injury and a rehab perspective, is complete rest. Now, this is the common thing. If you live in the UK, you go and see your GP, rest it for 6 weeks and come back if it's still a problem. And that is so foundationally and principally the worst thing that you can do for this one reason. And the reason is, imagine you get hurt, you get injured at this current level of performance, whatever that might be. You have this much strength, this much aerobic capacity, this much mobility, this much endurance capacity, hypertrophy, power, plyometric ability, and your body has let you down and can't tolerate the demands of the things you're trying to do, and you rest. Those physical qualities aren't getting any better. Over 6 weeks, those physical qualities are dropping and dropping and dropping to a point where, yeah, you might feel a bit better. The reason you feel better is because you've avoided the painful activity for a period of time. You've not fixed some of the underlying roots and drivers behind it. You've actually degraded or deconditioned. Essentially, you've lost strength, you've lost aerobic capacity, you've lost movement quality, you've lost you will lose muscle mass, hypertrophy, you will reduce your mobility and your flexibility. And then because you feel a bit better, you go back and try and do the things that you were trying to do before. And you can see quickly how people get stuck in this spiral of injury, rest, return, re-injury, injury, rest, return, re-injury. And I've done a previous video about that. Well, this is the biggest mistake that people make. It's common in the NHS, it's common from GPs, and actually we're getting a lot of people now that are coming to us and saying, I asked AI, I asked ChatGPT, I asked Claude, I asked Gemini, and it advised rest and maybe trying these couple of exercises. The reason it's wrong is because it deconditions you. Any exercises that it's suggesting are just going to be generic. They're not going to be specific to you, your story, your injury, and what your goals are. And I'll talk about that in another video. But ultimately, for the biggest bang for buck, strength and aerobic capacity are the foundations of everything you do. Move well, build capacity, hypertrophy, earn the right to progress through your plyometrics, and then get back to running if that's meaningful to you. Use flexibility, mobility training and passive treatments if they make you feel a little bit better and allow you to do more of this. And there is always something you can do, whether you believe you're in the most pain imaginable, in which case you probably need to be escalated to A&E and to more specific medical care. And there will always be something you can do, whether that is training your upper body, if you've got a lower body injury, doing off-feet conditioning. And this is what we specialize with whenever we work with anyone on our Pro Recovery and Performance Plan. We take full control. We do all your physio, all your rehab, all your strength and conditioning. So you're training, we make you fitter, stronger, so that at the end of working together, you not just fix the pain, you finish it far more confident, much better levels of performance, far more resilient, so that you can have every confidence going back. Hope that makes sense. If you have got any questions and comments, put them down below. And this video here is what YouTube recommends that you watch next.